Officer Dale Renner grabbed the old woman by the collar and slammed her against the hood of the car. "Hands where I can see them," he barked, his face inches from hers. Ruth Calloway gasped in pain, her cane clattering to the ground and rolling under the wheel of a nearby truck. Phones rose all around the parking lot, glowing screens catching every second of what was about to happen. Nobody stepped forward. Nobody said a word. They just watched, the way people watch a car crash from a safe distance, close enough to see everything and far enough to feel nothing. Ruth had no idea that 2 miles away, a black police SUV was already turning out of a parking garage, engine roaring, heading straight for this exact spot. She had no idea it carried a man who would soon fall to his knees on the hot asphalt in front of 100 strangers and call her mom. 3 hours earlier, the morning had felt almost gentle. Ruth signed her discharge papers at Cedar Grove Hospital with a hand that still trembled slightly from the anesthesia, her heart healing from a surgery that had taken place only 6 days before. A young nurse walked beside her wheelchair all the way to the front doors, chatting softly about nothing in particular, the kind of small talk meant to calm a nervous patient. The surgeon had said the same 2 sentences to her twice before she left the room. Rest. Walk slowly. No stress on your heart. Ruth had nodded both times, though in her mind she was already thinking about the small stop she wanted to make on the way home. It was not medicine. It was not groceries for the week. It was peaches. Fresh peaches from Millbrook Market, the same market where she and her husband Samuel used to walk hand in hand every Sunday morning for 31 years. Tomorrow would have been their wedding anniversary, and even though Samuel had been gone for almost 4 years now, Ruth still marked the day the way she always had, with a bowl of ripe peaches on the kitchen table and his old record player spinning softly in the background. She drove herself the short distance in her silver Mercedes, a car her son Marcus had bought for her 2 years earlier, the same week he was sworn in as the new chief of police for the county. She remembered exactly what he had said when he handed her the keys in the driveway that afternoon, his voice thick with something between pride and old anger. "You spent 40 years invisible to people who looked right through you, Mom," he had told her. Never again. Ruth had laughed and hugged him and told him he was being dramatic, that a car was just a car, but she had kept those words folded away somewhere quiet inside her, because she understood exactly what he meant, and some small part of her had believed him. Parking took her nearly 2 full minutes, careful and slow, exactly the way the doctor had told her to move. She left the Mercedes gleaming under the early afternoon sun and made her way into the market, leaning gently on her wooden cane the entire time. Across the lot, in a parked SUV with the engine idling, a woman named Vicky Sanderson sat watching. Vicky lived 2 houses down from Ruth on Alder Street and had never once, in nearly 6 years as her neighbor, said a friendly word to her. She had complained to the Homeowners Association about the height of Ruth's tomato plants. She had complained about the cars that sometimes parked outside Ruth's house when her grandchildren visited on weekends. She had never been asked over for coffee, and she had never asked either, though she liked to tell people at the nail salon that she simply did not feel safe on that block anymore. Now Vicky watched an elderly black woman step slowly out of a gleaming silver Mercedes, moving carefully on a cane, and something ugly and familiar turned over in her chest. The same feeling she got every time she saw Ruth's sprinkler running a little too long or her porch light left on past midnight. Vicky picked up her phone without a second thought and dialed 911. Her voice, when the dispatcher answered, was calm and smooth, almost bored, like a woman reporting nothing more urgent than a fender bender. "There is a black woman breaking into a Mercedes at Millbrook Market," she said. "She does not belong with a car like that. She might be armed. Please hurry." Every single word of it was a lie. Ruth's own key sat safely inside her purse. Her name was printed clean and legal across the title sitting in the glove compartment. But the dispatcher heard the word armed, and in that single instant, the entire nature of the call changed shape. The way a small stone dropped into still water sends rings out in every direction, each one wider and more distorted than the last. 2 miles away, a patrol radio crackled to life inside a parked cruiser, and Officer Dale Renner sat up straighter behind the wheel. Renner was 29 years old, 3 years into the job, and hungry in the particular way that young men sometimes are when they have decided that respect is something you take rather than something you earn. A possible armed theft was the most important call he had gotten all week, maybe the most important call he had gotten all month, and he flipped on his lights before dispatch had even finished the sentence. He did not slow down to ask a single clarifying question. In his mind, driving fast through 2 intersections with his siren wailing, the suspect was already guilty. He had a general description. He had a supposed crime. He had, without realizing it yet, an audience of phones already waiting in their owners' pockets. What he did not have, not one single piece of it, was the truth. He did not know that the woman he was racing toward had stitches closing a fresh incision across her chest. He did not know she had marched as a 10-year-old girl holding her mother's hand through streets that once refused to serve her family lunch at a counter. He certainly did not know about the phone call she was about to make, or what that phone call would cost him. Ruth had just set her 2 grocery bags down on the pavement beside the Mercedes, a small paper sack of peaches balanced carefully on top, when the siren screamed into the lot behind her. She turned, startled, squinting against the bright afternoon sun. "Step away from the vehicle, hands where I can see them," Renner shouted before he had even fully stepped out of his car, one hand already resting on his holster like a man arriving at a war rather than a grocery store parking lot. "Officer, this is my car," Ruth said, her voice calm and patient in a way that only comes from a lifetime of practicing patience with people who did not deserve it. "I was only loading my groceries." He circled her slowly, his eyes moving back and forth between the polished silver Mercedes and her faded cardigan, her simple orthopedic shoes, her gray hair pulled back in a loose bun. In the span of about 4 seconds, he decided in his own mind that the 2 things in front of him, the woman and the car, simply did not belong together, and that gap in his imagination became, to him, all the evidence he thought he needed. A few shoppers slowed near the entrance of the market, drawn by the sound of the siren and the sight of a uniformed officer squared off against an elderly woman. One person lifted a phone. Then another. Within a minute, a loose half-circle of onlookers had gathered at a careful distance, close enough to see everything clearly, far enough away to stay uninvolved. The exact same instinct that makes people slow their cars down to look at wreckage on a highway without ever pulling over to help. Renner, without warning, kicked Ruth's cane out from under her reaching hand, and it skidded several feet before disappearing beneath the wheel well of a parked truck, completely out of her reach. Without it, her balance became a fragile and uncertain thing. "Please," she whispered, catching herself against the warm hood of her own car. "I had heart surgery 6 days ago. I cannot stand for very long like this." "Whose car is this?" he asked again, as though she had not already answered. "Mine," she said. "I have owned it for 2 years. "Right," he said, almost laughing, "and I am the mayor." He grabbed her wrist and pulled it hard behind her back, ignoring the small sharp cry of pain that escaped her when the motion twisted the still healing muscles across her chest. The sudden movement knocked her purse loose from her shoulder, and it hit the pavement and spilled open, a tube of lipstick rolling away, an orange pill bottle from the hospital pharmacy skittering across the asphalt. Her registration card landed face up in plain view, her full name printed in clear black letters, matching the plate on the car in every possible way. A young delivery driver standing near the shopping carts, a man named Isaiah Cross, saw it first. "Her name is right there, man," he called out, taking one cautious step closer. "You do not even have to look hard." Renner glanced down. He saw the card. For one long second, he had a choice standing right in front of him. A small quiet chance to bend down, pick it up, read it, and begin, however clumsily, to fix his mistake before it grew any larger. Instead, he nudged the card into the shadow beneath the car with the toe of his boot, the same way he had already sent her cane sliding out of reach. "That does not prove anything," he muttered, loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. "Could be stolen too. People steal the paperwork right along with the car." Somewhere in the crowd, someone laughed, a short, bright, careless sound. The kind of laugh that treats a stranger's worst afternoon like free entertainment. Ruth felt that laugh land harder than the cuffs now biting into the thin skin over her wrist bones. She thought, in the strange sideways way the mind wanders during moments of fear, about being 10 years old and holding her mother's hand outside a lunch counter that would not serve them. She thought about 30 years spent mopping the marble floors of downtown office towers after midnight so that her son could have shoes that fit and books for school. She thought about every quiet humiliation she had absorbed and outlasted across 6 decades of simply trying to live an honest life, And she understood, in that parking lot, that none of it had counted for anything in the 4 seconds it took this young officer to decide who she must be. Renner pulled her upright and turned her to face the gathering crowd, the way a hunter displays a catch. "Walk," he told her. "I cannot," she breathed. "My heart. Please, I need to sit down." "You can sit in the car," he said. "Walk." Her knees buckled beneath her almost immediately, and because her hands were bound behind her back, she had no way to catch herself. She went down hard onto both knees on the unforgiving pavement, and the impact tore a sound from somewhere deep in her chest that echoed off the storefront glass across the lot. Renner looked at her crumpled on the ground and then looked out at the crowd and shook his head slowly, as if she had personally let him down. "Classic," he said. "They always do this, fake an injury, make a scene for the cameras." What the phones caught was undeniable even without his commentary. They caught a 68-year-old woman kneeling in a parking lot with blood beading at her wrist. They caught the abandoned cane lying under a stranger's truck. They caught the spilled pill bottle and the registration card glowing pale in the shadow beneath the car. They caught the bruised peaches rolling one by one toward a storm drain at the edge of the lot. What they had not caught yet, not fully, was who this woman actually was, and how completely that fact was about to change everything happening in front of them. Near the edge of the lot, Vicky Sanderson stood with her arms folded tightly across her chest, watching with a small satisfied smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. She had not expected it to work quite this well. She had wanted the old woman gone from her sight for an afternoon, nothing more, and she did not yet understand what she had truly set into motion, or how completely it would eventually turn back around and land on her own front doorstep. A woman near the front of the crowd pressed a hand to her mouth. "Someone should do something," she whispered, but she whispered it only to the friend standing beside her, not to the officer, and she did not move an inch. That is how it works nearly every time. Everyone quietly waits for someone else to become the someone. And so, almost always, no one does. Locked inside the back seat of the patrol car a few minutes later, the trapped heat pressed against Ruth's chest like a second pair of hands holding her down. Sweat rolled freely down her forehead and into her eyes. The pain that had started as a small sharp flash across her chest now settled deep and began to spread, tightening slowly like a fist closing around her heart. "Officer, please," she called weakly through the closed window. "Something is wrong, my chest." Renner glanced back once, saw a gray-faced woman slumped against the seat, and decided, because he had already made up his mind about her hours ago, that this too was simply part of the performance. "She is fine," he told his partner. "They always do this the second the cuffs go on." His partner that afternoon was a quieter officer named Priya Shah, 8 months into the job, standing near the crowd with her hands resting uneasily on her belt. She had not seen this particular script 20 times the way Renner claimed to have. What she saw through that car window did not look staged to her at all. It looked like a woman in genuine and rapidly worsening distress. "Travis," she said quietly, using his first name, "she does not look good. Her color is off. Maybe we should." He cut her off without even turning his head. "I have got seniority on this scene. Stand down." And for a long, uncomfortable moment, she did exactly that, folding her hands and staying silent. A decision she would replay in her mind many nights afterward, lying awake and wondering why the wrongness sitting cold in her stomach had not been enough to make her move sooner. It was Ruth's own voice, growing weaker but somehow steadier, that finally broke through. "I want my phone call," she said, loud enough to carry through the glass. "I know my rights. I am owed one call and I want it now." Renner brushed her off again, telling her she could have her call at the station. "No," she said, clear and certain despite everything her body was going through. "I would like it now." Something in the calm certainty of her tone finally made Priya move. She crossed to the car before Renner could stop her, opened the door, and crouched down to Ruth's level, taking in the sweat and the grey pallor of her skin up close for the first time. "Is there someone we should call?" She asked gently. "Family, a lawyer?" "Yes," Ruth whispered. "There is." She recited 10 digits slowly and clearly, a number she knew better than her own birthday. Priya dialed it on her own phone, since Ruth's hands remained cuffed behind her, and held it up to the older woman's ear. It rang once. It rang twice. On the third ring, a warm and busy voice answered, a voice with 100 other things to attend to that afternoon. Ruth closed her eyes, and for the first time all day, her calm finally cracked. "Marcus," she said, her voice breaking, "Baby, it is your mother. I need you to come." Priya's face changed instantly, because she recognized that name from every memo that crossed her desk, from the letterhead on every internal bulletin, from the door of the top-floor office at the county building. "Travis," she said softly, turning toward her partner. "What is her last name?" But Renner was no longer listening to her at all. He was staring toward the far end of the parking lot, where the afternoon light had begun flashing blue and red, not from one vehicle but from three, moving together in tight formation the way a convoy moves when the most important person in the entire county is riding inside one of them. The three SUVs stopped in a sharp arc across the lot, blocking the exit completely. Doors opened almost in unison, and the officers who stepped out did not move like men responding to a routine call. They moved like an escort clearing a path, their eyes already sweeping the lot for exactly one thing. From the lead vehicle stepped a tall man with broad shoulders in a pressed uniform, silver rank insignia catching the sunlight on his collar. His face stayed carefully blank for one brief moment, the focused calm of a man refusing to believe something until his own eyes confirm it. The crowd parted for him without anyone asking them to. He scanned the lot once, taking in the spilled groceries, the abandoned cane, the open door of the patrol car, and then he saw her. For one full second, Chief Marcus Calloway did not move at all. Then his composed expression cracked apart, the way a dam cracks before it finally gives way. "Mom," the word tore out of him, small and broken, a sound nobody standing in that lot expected from a man in his position. And then he was running. He crossed the parking lot in a handful of long strides and dropped straight down onto both knees on the burning asphalt beside her, taking her face gently in both hands as though she were made of something breakable. "Mom, I am here. Look at me. Who did this? Who put these on you?" He did not wait for an answer before reaching behind her and finding the cuffs himself, his hands going still the instant he felt how tightly they had been fastened, deep enough to cut. "Key," he said, and his voice had transformed completely, flat now, cold, carrying clean across the silent lot like the edge of a blade. "Whose prisoner is this?" Nobody moved at first. "The key," he said again, louder. Priya fumbled at her own belt, crossed over quickly, and unlocked the cuffs with visibly shaking hands. They fell away from Ruth's wrists, revealing marks that were deep, red, and beaded with fresh blood. Marcus caught her hands gently in his own and, in front of every phone still recording, pressed her wounded wrists softly to his lips. The entire parking lot went utterly silent. Renner stood frozen 10 feet away, his mind working fast and arriving nowhere good. "Sir," he started, "I was responding to a call. Armed theft. I did not know." Marcus rose slowly to his feet, and the slowness of it was somehow worse than any sudden movement could have been. "Her name," he said quietly, "is Ruth Calloway. She raised me alone in a one-bedroom apartment on Crescent Street. She cleaned office buildings at night after working a full-day job so that I could have shoes that fit and books for school. She came home at 2 in the morning with her back bent and her hands cracked, and she never once let me see her cry. That car," he continued, nodding toward the Mercedes, "the one you decided she could not possibly own. I bought it for her myself, 2 years ago, the week I made chief. I told her she had spent 40 years invisible to people like you, and that it would never happen again. And today she could not even buy a bag of peaches without a man deciding she was a criminal because of the color of her skin and the price of her car." It was then that Ruth spoke again, her voice soft but steady. "Nathan," she said, "do not let me watch you become him. Help me up first. My peaches are all over the ground." A sound moved through the crowd that was half laugh and half sob at once. Marcus let out a long breath, something in his shoulders finally loosening, and slid an arm carefully beneath his mother's to lift her, taking all of her weight without effort. "Somebody get her cane," he called out, "and call the paramedics. She had heart surgery 6 days ago and has been kneeling on hot pavement." 3 officers moved at once. Isaiah, the delivery driver who had refused to stop filming, darted forward and retrieved the cane from beneath the truck, pressing it gently into Ruth's free hand. "You are the one who kept talking," she told him, looking at him properly for the first time. When everyone else went quiet, "I heard you. Thank you, baby." His eyes filled, and he could not manage a single word back. Marcus turned to Rena one final time, his voice dropping into something almost gentle, which somehow made it more frightening than shouting would have been. "Hand your weapon and badge to Officer Shah," he said. "You are relieved of duty effective immediately, pending a full investigation into excessive force, unlawful detention, and denial of medical care to a woman recovering from heart surgery." Far at the edge of the lot, Vicky Sanderson had begun backing quietly toward her SUV, hoping nobody remembered exactly who had placed the first call. But Isaiah's camera had caught her too, standing there smiling while an old woman knelt in pain on the pavement. "Do not let that woman leave," Marcus said without even raising his voice, and 2 officers moved toward her immediately. The paramedics arrived within 4 minutes. They eased Ruth onto a gurney over her mild protests, wrapped her bleeding wrist, and clipped a monitor to her finger, the numbers on the screen making the lead medic's jaw tighten visibly. Her blood pressure had spiked dangerously, and her heart rate was ragged and uneven. "How long was she restrained like this?" he asked. 20 minutes, Priya answered quietly, "Maybe longer." The medic looked at Rena. He said nothing at all, because there was nothing left for him to say. Before the ambulance pulled away, Marcus bent down in front of the entire crowd, gathered up the bruised, scattered peaches one by one, placed them carefully back into their torn paper sack, and carried them after his mother as though they were the most important piece of evidence in the world. Ruth spent 3 days recovering in the hospital. Her heart had been pushed dangerously hard, the doctors told her, but it had held, because it had always been stronger than her chart ever suggested. The video from that afternoon spread the way these things always do now, quietly at first, then all at once. By the second day it had been viewed millions of times, and news vans had begun parking outside the county building downtown. The public reaction was loud and immediate, and most of it wanted the exact same thing. Fire him. Charge him. Make an example out of him for everyone else to see. Marcus came to her hospital bedside on the 3rd evening, still in his uniform, and sat down in the stiff plastic chair beside her the way he had as a boy waiting for test results. "They want me to throw the book at him," he told her. "Some of them want his career completely destroyed, and honestly, after what he did to you, nobody would blink twice if I did it." Ruth was quiet for a long moment before she answered. "And what would that actually fix?" she asked him finally. "It would feel like justice," he said. "Feeling like justice and being justice are not always the same thing," she told him gently, taking his hand in both of hers. "If you destroy this one man completely, the next officer just like him watches it happen on the news and learns exactly one lesson from it. Do not get caught with the wrong old woman. That is all he will learn. Do not do it to someone who does not matter enough for that lesson to stick." What she asked her son for instead was bigger, harder, and far slower than simple revenge. She asked for body cameras that could never be switched off during any stop, for any reason. She asked for a firm rule requiring officers to actually check a registration or an identification before any detention could legally proceed. She asked for real training, the kind that put young officers in a room face to face with the very communities they so often misjudged, until the reflex to assume the worst could slowly be unlearned rather than simply punished after the fact. And she asked for one more thing, a formal program bearing her family's name. "Call it whatever sounds official enough for the paperwork," she told her son, "but I will tell you exactly what it is really for. It is for every person who gets pulled over or stopped on a sidewalk somewhere and does not happen to have a son with a badge to call. They are who this is truly about. I was lucky. I want to build something lasting for the people who are not." 6 weeks later, the county formally announced what quickly became known as the Callaway Standard, a set of new rules requiring cameras running at all times during any stop, a mandatory identification check before any detention could begin, and a citizen review board with real authority to examine footage and demand direct answers from officers involved in any complaint. Isaiah Cross, the young delivery driver who had refused to lower his phone even when threatened, became the very first civilian appointed to sit on that board. Travis Renner was never sent to prison. He eventually pleaded guilty to a set of lesser charges and permanently lost his certification, meaning he could never legally wear a badge again anywhere in the state. But before his case formally closed, Ruth did something almost nobody expected. She asked to meet him in person, one final time. They sat across a small table in a quiet, windowless room, with no cameras running this time, no crowd gathered outside. She did not lecture him. Instead, she told him about Crescent Street, about mopping marble floors after midnight, about the son who grew up to become a man that an entire county now listened to carefully. She told him she had been 10 years old, holding her own mother's hand tightly, the very first time a man in a uniform looked at her as though she were nothing more than a problem waiting to be removed. "I have been afraid of that particular look my whole life," she told him quietly. "You gave it to me again in a parking lot when I was 68 years old. I am simply too old now to keep being afraid, so I am going to tell you the truth instead of a lecture. Nobody is born seeing people the way you saw me that day. Somebody taught you to see it that way, and anything a person has been taught can eventually be unlearned, if you are willing to sit with the discomfort of doing it." Renner wept quietly across the table from her, and it was not the frightened, performative weeping from that afternoon in the parking lot. It was slower, quieter, and it finally looked like the very beginning of something honest. A full year later, Ruth Calloway stood at the front of a training room, no cuffs on her wrists this time, standing behind a simple wooden podium instead. Every new officer hired in the county now hears her story on their very first day on the job, told entirely in her own voice, in her own words. She shows them a photograph of that registration card lying half hidden in shadow beneath a stranger's car, and she asks them just one question before she lets them leave the room. What would you have done? The Calloway standard has since been adopted, in one form or another, by 4 neighboring counties. Isaiah still serves proudly on the Citizen Review Board. Vicky Sanderson completed her sentence for filing a false police report and quietly moved away from Alder Street not long afterward. Ruth still drives the same silver Mercedes every single week, and she still buys her peaches from Millbrook Market without a single person ever questioning her right to be there again. If this story moved you even a little, share it with someone who genuinely needs to hear it today. And sit with this thought for a moment before you scroll away. Most people who get stopped unfairly somewhere in this world do not happen to have a chief of police for a son waiting on the other end of a phone call. Most of them only have the strangers standing around them in that exact moment. Phones raised, watching, waiting for someone else to finally be brave enough to speak first. Be that voice the very next time you find yourself standing in a parking lot like this one. Because somewhere out there right now, somebody genuinely needs you to be.